All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be able to write fractions as percents. So we're kind of undoing what we just did where we wrote the percentage as a fraction. And there's actually two ways that you can do this. There's more, but these are the two main ways that you can choose. The first one is you can simply write an equivalent fraction. With a denominator of 100, because we know percent is always out of 100. And once you have a denominator of 100, your percent is simply the numerator with a percent symbol and that is your percent. So the numerator with a percent symbol is your percent. However, that's not the only way that you can do it. Some of you might be familiar with the way that Mr. Banish talks about how you can write a percentage. And I know I've mentioned it in class as well, when you've been given homework assignments. Not all fractions or denominators can easily be figured out what you're multiplying to get 100. So if that's the case, you could always simply divide your fraction to get a decimal and then multiply by 100. And the reason we multiply by 100 because a percent is always out of 100. So those are two different methods that you can do to find the percent of a fraction. So let's look at an example. Let's go ahead and do example 2, where we're going to go ahead and write 13/20 as a percent. So if I want to write 13/20 as a percent, I could start, if I wanted to use the first method, and I'm going to actually show both methods here. I could have 13/20, which is my fraction. Okay, do I know what I can multiply 20 by to get to 100? Well, I do know that 20 times 5 equals 100. So if I multiply the denominator by 5, to keep it an equivalent fraction, what do I have to do? Multiply the numerator. Whatever I do the bottom, I got to do the top. So 13 times 5 is 65. 65/100 is the same thing as 13/20, just written with the denominator of 100. So now I know the numerator with the percent symbol is my percent. Well, the numerator is 65, and I put a percent symbol after it, which is my new percentage. 65/100 is the same thing as 65%, which is also the same thing as 13/20. So that's if I use the first method that we talked about. If I chose to use Mr. Banish's method, I would simply have divided the fraction and multiplied by 100. So 13 divided by 20, keep in mind, the numerator goes inside the division problem, and the denominator comes outside. Does 20 go into 13? No, it does not, 0 times. So I go ahead and bring my decimal down, bring my decimal up, add a 0. Does 20 go into 130? Yeah, 6 times. 6 times 20 is 120. I take a difference and I get 10. I have a remainder, so I'm going to continue to divide by adding another 0 and bringing it down. Does 20 go into 100? Yep, it does. It goes into it 5 times. And 5 times 20 is 100, with none left over. So 65/100 is my decimal, but I have to take 65/100 and times it by 100. really I'm multiplying it by 1 with 2 zeros. Well, anything times 1 is going to stay the same. And by multiplying it by 2 zeros, I'm simply moving the decimal 2 places to the right. So I really have 65%, which is the exact same thing that we got over here. So it doesn't matter which method I use, but that's how I would write it as a percentage.